Clarky here from the Phobic Flyer. On our most recent Gloucestershire Airport livestream, I was introduced to Mark Hooton, who is the owner and pilot of the last remaining ex-RAF Vampire. This glorious aircraft was put onto the UK civilian register in 1980 and was restored to full flying condition by the SAS. Now, I did have to control my excitement a little as we were only watching the very same pilot flying his very same Vampire at the recent event hosted by the Jet Age Museum just a few weeks earlier. So when I was asked would I like to have a chat with Mark, I responded with, yes please. We had a good long chat with Mark about the Vampire, which is understandably one of his great passions, and we have edited the following interview from the live stream. The full live stream links are in the description below. I started learning to fly in 2013 and it took me 7.5 years to get my PPR licence due to a debilitating fear of flying. I created this channel to show some of my training and what's next for my flying hobby and to prove that it is possible to overcome a phobia. Welcome to the Phobic Flyer YouTube channel. Mark, welcome to the Phobic Flyer channel. Obviously it's a great day here in Gloucester but not a lot going on. There's something special you do. What is it?
Well, thank you. I suppose apart from flying 737s, I also fly the Vampire. And
how long have you been flying the Vampire?
Oh, about 15, 16 years, I suppose. Brilliant.
And it must be an interesting or unusual story. How did you come to... Do you own the Vampire?
Yes.
How did you come to own the Vampire?
We started with a group of 4, very quickly became 2, and the other partner eventually had to move to Scotland, and it became just a little bit too difficult for him to commute. So, yeah.
And do you fly 737 now, or you have flown them, or do you still fly them?
I still fly 737s. For the last 10 years or so, prior to that, I was flying 767s.
Wow, okay. So, do you fly any GA aircraft, like the PA-28, things like that? So how different is the Vampire compared to the PA-28?
So the last aircraft I flew was a couple of weeks ago, I think, AT3.
Oh, wow.
If you're familiar with that. And I'm also, current on Cessnas and Cherokees.
Yeah.
The AT3, it doesn't have a lot of thrust, as you're probably familiar with. Whereas with the Vampire, there's plenty of thrust.
Lots of noise as well.
There is a lot of noise. When you're in the aircraft, actually, you probably think the AT3 or a Cherokee's even noisier. The noise in the cockpit's not too bad. Outside, in front of the engine, the compressor makes a considerable amount of noise on the ground.
Is that the whistle?
But in flight it just whistles, as you've heard.
Yeah, we've heard.
And,
fantastic.
The Vampire, yes, you do have to monitor the speed.
Yeah.
You're always throttling it back to keep it under control.
Yeah.
Whereas with the average light aircraft, a Cherokee or a Cessna 172, you could set something like 2400 RPM and go to sleep, and it'll just sit there. And because of the drag of the airframe, it doesn't accelerate. It's not going to break any records.
No.
But with the Vampire, yes, it will continue to accelerate.
What's the top speed? Sorry.
It's quite happy. The economy cruise is anywhere between 250 and 300 knots. It's the same fuel burn. And that would compare with a Cherokee sort of thing where you're burning 30 litres an hour.
Yeah.
If that. The Vampire's burning 1200 litres an hour.
But it is Jet A1, which is a bit cheaper than avgas, isn't it?
Still 1200 litres. It's a lot. It's a lot to go through, and that's the best you'll get out of it. That's economy cruise.
So do you have to pick special events and things like that you basically decide to go and fly? You know, when you flew at the Jet Age Museum feature they had a few weeks ago, do you have to pick and choose? Do you get asked by a lot of people if you'll attend and you have to say no, or?
No, we don't get asked very frequently at all. There's the only events this year we've got Ragley Hall, which is just up the road, 10 miles up the road.
Yeah.
We'll be there on the weekend for that.
Oh, that'd be nice. We might see if we can come up for that.
Yeah, let's fingers crossed for some nice sunny, good weather.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? Yeah.
And you'll see us take off out of here on,
of course,
in the afternoon. and returning 25 minutes later.
Brilliant. When you did the event the other day, you seemed to be over there. I can't remember which hangar you were outside or which apron for a long time. Was that weather or was that something else, or is that just how long it takes to get things going and approvals and things like that? Or
the original plan was actually to have the aircraft parked in front of the museum.
Yeah.
There's a small aircraft parking area next to the car parking area, and we were going to put the aircraft out there.
Yeah.
However, initially we were worried about it getting bogged. There had been a lot of rain, but it did dry up nicely. However, it was just still a little bit too bumpy, a little bit too rough. So we decided to leave the jets over on the hard standing.
Yeah. That's quite wise.
The side of the threshold there.
Yeah.
But no, unlike a light aircraft, where once you've started the aircraft, you check magnetos, have to warm it up, that sort of thing.
Yep.
No, I set everything up in the Vampire. As soon as the engine's running, disconnect the ground power, and she's ready to fly.
She's ready to go.
There are no other checks. Basically, it's ready to go.
There's no power checks or anything like that at all. Just get in.
It's warmed up.
Throttle
it goes
forward. She's gone.
We do let it cool down.
Yeah.
But apart from that, no. Once the engine's running, you probably noticed there was a battery pack next to the aircraft.
Yeah, we could see something big. Yeah.
So we have to disconnect that. Once that's gone, the aircraft's ready to fly.
Yeah. Wow.
No checks. So if it was right on the end of the runway,
you
would just put the power up continuously. It does take a lot longer to accelerate than a piston engine. But apart from that, no, we were possibly waiting to the engine charges up a cylinder full of air, and that compressed air is used for the brakes and the canopy seal. So it may have been a few minutes while we were charging up to pressure. Yeah.
Fair enough.
But normally that's pre-charged.
Yeah.
The aircraft sits on the end of the runway or the end of the airfield, and as soon as the engine's running, you've got the air pressure, you go.
And that.
We don't want to sit and taxi. We don't want to waste fuel taxiing. It's of no value.
No, I can imagine you don't.
It does burn a lot of fuel on the ground, but it also, if it's sitting over bitumen, the heat from the exhaust will weaken
melt the tarmac. It will.
Oh yes, it'll melt.
Wow.
It'll melt glass bottles and.
Really?
Yes.
So how much thrust does the engine put out then?
Over
over
3,000 pounds of thrust.
Wow, that's great.
We don't put the power on too rapidly. It's quite a slow acceleration.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, it does take time for the engine to spool up.
Do you spool up on the brakes, or do you not do that? You just push forward and go.
The engine will suck up debris off the ground,
yes.
So we don't stop it at all. So the moment we start taxiing, you probably notice down the taxiways.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is get to the end of the runway in one continuous movement and just keep the power coming on and don't stop it at all.
No. I must admit as well, you've got the really authentic RAF sounding voice. You just sounded like what I would. My dad was in the RAF like years and years ago, and it was that very sort of like. Is that because of what you've got over your mouth in the aircraft? It's a traditional.
In the aircraft, we of course are wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
Attached to the helmet is a mask.
Yeah.
And at the end of the mask is a microphone, carbon microphone. So it is it's an original. Original carbon microphone that's fitted to the aircraft.
Yeah. It gives you that very high frequency, not a lot of bass on mid-range, which just sounds fantastic. It was great.
Thank you.
Do you need oxygen? Have you provision for oxygen, or do you not need oxygen?
Most of the equipment, the oxygen equipment, has been removed from the aircraft. We tend to keep it below 10,000 feet, the aircraft now.
Yeah.
So we don't need the oxygen.
Yeah.
And if we're doing air shows and that sort of thing, there's no need.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, that's brilliant. That's what I can't believe we're actually talking to you. And this was completely, thanks to Zoe, this was as well. So this was completely impromptu, no planning, which ends my bad questions. Are you hanging around for a little bit, or are you shooting off? If you've got any questions, guys, give us your name and ask the question to Mark, and we'll put the question straight over to Mark.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Yeah. Any questions at all? We're going to be here for most of the afternoon. We're going to wash the aircraft today. There's a few other little things to do to it, so we hope to have it out of the hangar in about 30 minutes.
Oh, and which hangar is it?
You can see the refueling trucks there.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah,
Just to the right of the refueling trucks there.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Yeah,
but
just
you won't
behind
be
the
firing
fire
her up
station.
at all?
We're not planning to at this stage. No, there's just a few little jobs to do to it, and wash it and couple of checks. We hope to have her flying. I think it's the 27th to 28th that weekend. Later this month. We'll be up at Kirkbride for a fly in there.
Yeah.
There's also, as I said earlier, there's the Ragley Hall air show, and we'll be displaying there.
Brilliant. Fantastic. That's great. Mark, thank you so much for talking to us. I really appreciate that.
And we'll be back later to any questions.
Yeah, okay.
Any questions you think up, or
brilliant. Else. Okay, mate, smash it. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Nice
Cheers.
one. Thank you. How fantastic is that? Talking to Mark, who flies the Vampire. Brilliant. So John Sorsby, who happens to be our chief flying instructor at Bristol Aero Club, he's asked a good question. Can you ask Mark if they are performance limited when they operate out of Gloucester?
Yes, this is a good question. We are very limited with the aircraft. Just let the helicopter pass.
Okay,
right.
I think we're good now.
The aircraft is limited due to the temperature and the length of the runway. Here's a big difference between the Cherokee and the Vampire. So with two on with the Vampire, we'd probably only carry half a load of fuel.
Yeah.
Whereas with a Cherokee, you could have two and full fuel, probably four and full fuel.
Yeah, you couldn't have 180.
Yeah. No problems at all. But no, she's takeoff limited, and also. More importantly, it's landing limited.
Okay. What does that actually
landing
mean?
Weight limited. So there isn't the runway length for us to take off and land here. The other problem with this aircraft is that the braking system is pneumatic. So we talk about charging up this compressed air bottle. So the brakes on these aircraft are operated with compressed air, and you squeeze a little handle, and it applies pressure to both main wheels. Now, if there's any crosswind, what happens is the pressure is released when you have cross controls as you do it.
Okay, yeah.
And you can double the amount of runway you need in a crosswind. And you're putting all the braking on one brake unit. So this is. And if that fails, then we've got a big problem.
Yeah.
So the other limit, of course, is a wet runway. So much more than about 10 knots of crosswind here, and a wet runway where we just can't do it.
No.
So when we come back in here, we normally make a limit of about £1,000 of fuel.
Okay.
And that's about 15 minutes of fuel when we land.
Wow.
So if we had to hold, we've got to make a decision very quickly whether we're going to be able to stay here or we have to divert somewhere else.
Where would you divert to? Kemble?
So there's Kemble, of course, which is a fantastic runway.
Yeah.
Brilliant runway, it's nice and smooth. But there's also Wellesbourne.
Okay.
Not quite as smooth, but there are not a great deal of airfields that can accommodate the Vampire. You know, it's got to be a sealed runway really to get the aircraft back out again. So
what do you need sort of on a? I suppose obviously there's so many factors, isn't there, with performance, but if you were taking off, because I noticed what you did, you backtracked, didn't you, right to the edge, and then were you probably airborne 3/4 of the way down or before that?
Yeah, about 3/4. Yeah, we used the full length of the runway. Would never leave any runway behind.
Oh, okay.
And it's not just the time that your wheels leave the ground. That's the takeoff roll required. But what we want to do is measure what what's the distance to 50 feet?
50 feet, of course.
And that with these early jets is something very different. If you notice, it takes a long time for you to get to that 50 point and a reasonable speed.
Yeah.
To be able to do a 180, to get back on should an engine fail, we'd need 220 knots.
Oh, okay.
So it's quite some distance. And they're the sort of things we're thinking.
I can imagine.
To 50 foot, but also at what point could I get the aircraft back around and onto the airfield again?
So, and that is something that you would be comfortable doing if you were a 220 knots or above. You would attempt to do a 180 back in.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So this is not normally taught. At what point do you normally consider? Well, in a Cherokee, if you were at 1,000 feet, would you turn around and come back? Well, I'd suggest with a little bit of a headwind, that would be a reasonable decision to make. But with the jet, if you're going to touch down somewhere at 100 knots, the fields out there, if it's forest, you really don't want to be going into that.
No.
So it's nice to have the knowledge of at what point can you turn around and get back onto an airfield. It takes so long to get the aeroplane ready, to do the pre-flight and everything, get it ready, that if you get airborne, you're not going to spend 10 minutes, you're going to go spend half an hour, sort of thing. There's just no point.
No, I know.
It takes so long to tow the airplane out, to get the brakes charged up, fueled up, to check it all out.
Definitely.
And one of the big costs is putting it back on the runway.
Definitely.
It's the amount of brake wear.
Definitely.
The tyres, the brakes, the inner tube.
What type of brakes does it have?
Pneumatic drums.
Oh, they are drums, yeah. Pneumatic drums.
So there's the shoes are pushed apart by, it's like two bicycle inner tubes that inflate around a cylinder, and they push the shoes out and break the wheel.
Yeah, a bit like a car one, a little bit.
A bit like a car, a bit like a 40s train, steam train.
Oh, yes.
If you think about something like the Westinghouse braking system on a train, it's like that.
Yeah, of course.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But it's the same system between the Spitfire, the Hurricane, the Mosquito, the Vampire. Because, I don't know whether you know, the Vampire first flew in 43.
Oh, it was. I didn't know it was 43.
Yeah.
During the war, then.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realise.
What do you think powered the first Meteor?
Oh, of course, yes.
The Vampire engines.
Yes.
Actually, the first flight of the Meteor was with the Vampire engines.
Oh, right.
In fact, maybe that's something worth talking about. The Vampire's first, if you like, the records it broke. So.
Yeah.
So for all of 1942, the engine sat and they tested it.
Yeah.
They didn't have an airplane for it.
No. They had an engine, but no airplane.
We had jet engines running in this country in 1940.
We were quite well developed in that respect.
De Havilland wanted to make another Mosquito, another bomber. Because they were good at that. They made the Comet that went to Australia. The Comet racing airplane, went to Australia. Made the Mosquito, and then someone said, "Can you make a fighter?" But they've never made a fighter. They haven't made a fighter for years. Of course, De Havilland, Geoffrey De Havilland, he'd made fighters in the First World War.
Yeah, of course.
So
why not?
So their skill, their area of expertise was high-speed bombers.
Yeah.
And if you think of the first first German bomber, the first operational jet aircraft in ever, was Urado 234. And if you think about it, that was a jet Mosquito. And it ran rings around everything in the UK ever had. Even after D-Day, they could run the Rados across the UK and nothing could stop them.
No.
So we would have been better off making a twin-engine Mosquito rather than the Vampire, but the way the Air Ministry worked and the way the government worked, they decided Rover cars would make jet engines, who had no experience, and so they forced Rover cars to work with Frank Whittle and Power Jets, and that just didn't work. And hence these guys' idea to get a jet running. The Power Jet's got that little engine in the single engine research aircraft. That aircraft flew beautifully, But then to get other people in and work together, that didn't work, and hence the big delays with the Meteor.
Yeah.
And the Meteor first flew in March '43 with Vampire engines.
Oh wow.
And then the Vampire didn't fly till September '43.
Okay.
But the Americans were also given a jet engine, a de Havilland jet engine, and that powered their first P-80 shooting, which became the Shooting Star.
Yes, it did, didn't it?
And
Yes.
the T-33. That was all.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a lot of heritage in this area as well, not just the UK, but this area with aircraft in that area, wouldn't there?
Oh yeah. From here, well, Bristol.
Yeah.
Of course,
Like a
right through to
corridor.
Lutterworth,
Yes, definitely.
with where Power Jets was, Rugby. Certainly, if you say south of Manchester to Derby.
Let's just go back to here a sec. So John Sorsby says, really interesting, thanks Mark. Looked pretty tight the other week. I don't know if it means landing or takeoff there.
It is. Every time we come in, it's very limited. How are you?
How are you?
And one more quick question.
I thought it can't be Mark.
Oh,
No, it wouldn't be me.
Oh, no, hang on. This has got. I didn't realise I could touch the screen. Regarding performance, this is Peter Cox. He used to teach me to fly. He was one of the guys who got me out of my phobia of flying. So that's bizarre. Regarding performance, are you able to calculate reduced thrust takeoff as we do in modern civil jet aircraft, or are all your takeoff completed at full thrust? Good question.
Have I still got it on?
You still? Yeah. I just keep looking around to make sure we're still broadcasting, and we are. So that's all good.
So I use full thrust for most takeoffs. When I feel that we've got other options, then I'll bring the power back.
Okay.
So it's sort of done
Dynamically.
Yes.
Yeah. Very much.
When as soon as I feel that I can reduce the EGT.
Yeah.
And which saves the wear on the turbine and increases engine life and reliability, then yes, I will throttle it back. Yep.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thanks for that. Thanks for the question as well, Peter. Hope you're okay. Peter flies 737-800s.
Right.
For a major UK, what are they called? Well, for a major UK airline.
Yes.
Travel airline.
Yeah. No. We don't reduce the power, so he'd be used to setting a 22 or 24 or 26k thrust, maybe an assumed temperature. No, you do it all in your head.
It's all dynamically done. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And we'll ask if you've got any more questions, then please fire them over.